Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Mulchaney. I'm the head of product at Dashscored. I'm joined with my colleague, Chris Baugh, who's our data architect. We're super excited to be leading this webinar for the IGDA community today. We're fresh off of being at MDev a couple weeks ago and Games Beat Next last week, just connecting with folks across the industry, and it's been really exciting. We're going to jump in and share, I think, for about 30 minutes about Dashscored, about community management and how analytics plays a really critical role in that. And hopefully we'll be able to go through some Q&A at the end. We are super accessible and would love to connect with anybody in this community and audience, whichever platform you're seeing this on. If you're managing a Discord community, if you work at an indie game dev studio, or in various roles across game production or design, and you have some direct role contributing to community growth, specifically with Discord, we'd love to chat, and we'll share more information with you about that at the end. Chris, you want to go ahead and pull up our slides? We can jump in.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do a screen sharing here. Okay. Let me know if this is visible.
Yeah, I see it. That's probably good. It's pretty much full screen.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and jump right in. So Dashscored is the name of our company. We focus on providing Discord community analytics as a way to really bring the power of data-driven decision-making directly into the way that communities grow, the way that communities are engaged in Discord specifically. And as we've learned over the last year, the role of community has really never been more important, whether it's for first-time developing teams that are trying to get a new title to market, and then they're in those early stages of developing a community and developing a following, or whether it's at really mature studios that are, working on several games at a time. At our core, what Dashscored works on is we deliver analytics via a bot. We have a free bot, and we have paid services, but we focus on analytics from Discord communities that bring clarity to these core pillars of community: membership, activity, engagement, and sentiment analysis. We see ourselves as a complement to maybe more well-known bots like StatBot or Me6 or others, in that while some of those important tools are focused on bringing, metrics on role assignment or basic activity, our analytics capacity goes way beyond what Discord provides natively. We do that by pulling the Discord API information and serving that directly to clients. So that's kind of how our product works. And what we're working on, what we're providing, is really geared towards anybody that is trying to build meaningful connections, lasting connections with the members of their community. We currently do this with an interesting mix of Discord users, including IGDA. We're excited about that partnership, and we'll share more about that in follow-up communications. But we're working with the IGDA community right now. We'd love to grow that relationship with other communities, around the world and related to special interest groups. We work with indie game developers. Like I mentioned, we were just at the MDev conference in Madison. We've been working with Air Force and Space Force Gaming over the last year, their esports community. We've been working with Obsidian over the last year, and we even have some relationships in the higher education space with Arizona State University. And there are other groups like Black Girl Gamers and others that have been using our bot, and we're excited to continue to share that access to more communities. So just to kind of jump right into the type of analytics that we provide, one of the ways that we deliver insight that goes way beyond what Discord as a platform shares, and honestly what other bots do, is we help community managers, production teams, sort of all of the key stakeholders that are working on community, really get under the hood and into the details of the data that membership and activity really show in their Discord. So this is an example from some client work we did over the summer. You can see at the end of July in that pink box there in the middle where game release is kind of highlighted, you can see this huge spike in community growth. And what we were helping this partner really understand is that when this second title was released, not only did their community grow, but they were able to sustain the growth of that membership and engagement across their community for weeks and weeks and weeks following the release of that title. And so with some insight from our tool, we're able to show real specificity around not just total membership, but engagement in the community, how that engagement played out in terms of positive versus negative sentiment. We use a sentiment analysis model that's built into our tool so we can see at the channel by channel level how folks are engaging in the community. For this particular community team, it was helpful to see that level of detail, but then also translate that into follow-up community engagement efforts that they were doing in the days and weeks following that game release. So this is an example of a kind of custom report that we provide for a client. Some of their key metrics were focused on membership tiers. They're wanting to know, who in their Discord is active multiple times a day versus once a day versus once a week or once a month, and seeing the trends of those different tiers of members engaging in their community across weeks of the summer. On the right-hand side here, you're seeing in green that original game title that was being played, about 1,000 members, give or take, every day playing that game title. And then when that new release dropped at the end of July, you can see this almost six-fold increase in members playing. So these kinds of analytics really provided some insight via Discord for this customer to be able to quantify the kind of impact that their new title was having within their direct user base. For this client, this idea of discovering more about what the community is doing, how they're engaging in the space, how those titles play into that kind of work has been really useful. And we're able to automate these kinds of analytics for them so that they're spending more time directly engaging with their members. at sort of a high level, data, whether it's being used from Discord directly, from other tools, or via the work you could do with Dashscored, is really leveraged in one of two ways. You're either using that data to make a decision or to look back and reflect on, is that decision we made, the thing that we committed to, is it working? Is it playing out in the ways that we'd like it to? And one of the things we hear from customers and from partners across this space all the time is, we want to be more data driven, but we're not sure how to be when it comes to Discord. And especially for indie game teams that are working on Discord communities that might just have several dozen or several hundred members, we often hear things like, we're doing all we can, or we know that our community is a priority, it's just not our top priority yet. And we're here to say a couple of things about that. Number one is, it's perfectly fine to be in this sort of space because most folks are. But also, we want people to know, especially if your work is engaging directly in Discord, that there are tools out there like Dashscored to help automate some of this work for you, so that the benchmarks and the sort of initial foundational data of your community, a lot of those metrics are useful to development teams, to publishers, to other partners that are working to help games be successful and to help game communities be successful. That data can start to be captured early on in this process. As you likely know, Discord is a go-to space for lots of use cases, right? There are Discord communities like the IGDA Discord community that are intended to connect people because of their profession or because of their passion. But what we know about Discord is that the majority of that interaction in that space is actually happening in really small, close groups of friends. Most of those conversations are happening in very small groups. But of course, Discord is used in lots of ways too. There are LFG communities, competitive gaming events, play testing, early access, and actually quite a lot of community growth that extends way beyond gaming. So one of the things that we talk with partners and customers all the time about is, when thinking about how to best leverage Discord as a tool, it's important to think of Discord as one of, but not the only application that your fans, your community, your players are spending time on. Discord just happens to be structured in such a way where lots of intersections of data and information can be accessed to best understand your core audience. And so thinking about Discord as a tool and as a space to engage with your community is a great place to start, because there's a lot that can be learned about your community through the data. This slide just kind of speaks to that a little bit more. Obviously there are other platforms, including StreamYard, right? We're able to stream this kind of content across multiple platforms all at once. It's an awesomely powerful tool. The reality for most, especially early game development teams, is that they're likely not leveraging or certainly have enough people to manage 5 or 6 or 10 platforms. And so this idea of Discord playing a really central role, both in the community sense of connecting with people, but also within this broader marketplace of trying to get content, trying to get games in front of the right people. We see a really powerful through line in the development process, which isn't just the development from a technical standpoint of the game, so that it's playable, so that it's exciting and really speaking to its intended audience, but that this idea of development of community is happening alongside of that work as well. Discord is a really important place to do that, because it's the place where gamers are most often connected.
Yeah, and again, this is Chris here. Andrew's talking about this journey from development and distribution through all the discovery platforms to where engagement actually happens. And one of the just practical things we like to point out is that many of you listening are familiar with the analytics that Steam drives and how critical that is to understanding the marketplace, how your game is going in early launch or maybe on Steam Next Access. Great analytics exists there. A lot of the sort of middle tier things that people use, like YouTube or TikTok and Twitch, those also have pretty mature analytics where when you open up a channel or do streaming, you can get a sense of what content and what types of streams are engaging versus not, right? So there's a lot of data available on these platforms that really help you go back to those two key things. You're either making a decision about what to do, or you're using the data to reflect on, is that decision playing out like we wanted to? Discord really doesn't have anything like that natively. You've got to get a community to a specific size to get access to the very basic server insights. And also, to Andrew's point, there are some apps out there, some bots that you can install to get basic analytics. But one of the things we wanted to do with this webinar was showcase some of those decision points and how you can literally go into some of the analytics that we track and lay the data of engagement in your community next to, say, your engagement in your Twitch. So what topics, what streams from your Twitch led to upticks in engagement in your community where they carried the conversation on? So we really want to point out how we know there's a lot of tools and a lot of hats that you wear as you work through analytics, and Discord is also available to be one of those when you're ready to focus on community. But at its core, again, Discord really is group chat. It's where people meet fans and friends. This is some data from Discord itself that they released at GDC, where they said 20% of the conversations happening in Discord are happening in what they call official fan communities. But 80% of the conversations are happening in smaller servers. So if, whether it's a large community or an official fan community or a small community, there's still data to be gained from looking at engagement and the conversations that are taking place. So we want to remind people that, big is good, but small can have just as much signal strength within it, right? So you could even actually get more insights out of a smaller focused set of users than a large sprawling community that you may be a part of or partnering with. So again, understanding conversation is important. But then what you want to do with that is bring your management efforts into focus with analytics. So you design certain experiences for your membership. They react, they respond, but using analytics can help bring some of that into sharper focus. You can go down and look at, say, particular periods of time, particular types of content, particular roles, or particular channels that may or may not be engaging or driving your growth. We're going to look at some examples of that, but we just wanted to kind of at a high level talk about this idea of the impact that analytics makes. And again, we also recognize not every server is the same, whether you're a small community server, a large fan server, whether you're a very focused server, let's say you're using the community really for early access or play testing or feedback. There's all sorts of different functions, and analytics can help with your decision making on any type of community that you're driving. So again, it applies to communities of all shapes and sizes. One of the things we just like to throw out there before we switch gears and look at some live examples here are the building blocks of a Discord community, because when we dive into the analytics product, we're going to be kind of jumping around between some of these concepts of channels and roles and successful activations. But we just want to recognize that not every community needs all of these components, but these are all different components that can be leveraged to essentially drive engagement or growth. I don't know, Andrew, if you had any thoughts on anything you'd like to highlight before we switch gears and pull up the live product.
Yeah, I would just add, Chris, that, we think of these components as the literal building blocks of a community. But like Chris said, the connection we're hoping to help folks make is that those building blocks can also be the things, the access points to really useful data. So it's one thing to build the community in a thoughtful way, to be intentional about that, and to sort of, scale the structure and functions of your Discord community in a really thoughtful way. That's important. That's sort of like phase one. And then phase two, which is what Chris is going to show now, is about understanding the analytics and the data that is reflected from that. And then there's this kind of repeating process that goes on. And I think that's applicable to a very wide spectrum of communities. So I think that's a good connection for folks to make for what we're trying to share here, is that you don't have to have all of these component parts in your Discord right away, but as you add them in and as they're useful, they can then lead to more useful insight through your own data.
Great. So again, I'll probably focus mostly on channel and role, and we'll look at some onboarding. But there's a lot of different elements that go into designing engagement. Let me go ahead and switch gears to our dashboard. So what you're looking at here is our core dashboard. And again, one of the other things that separates this product from other analytics products is that it has a multi-server analytics capacity. So in this case, it's not just stats on a single server, but I actually have a portfolio of different servers. And the data here is rolled up across all of that. We like to look at audience in 3 buckets. One of them is your total audience, which is really just, how many members are in. Passive audience is the number of members that are on Discord, but they're just not doing anything on your server. And then active audience is where people are doing things like posting messages, reacting with emojis, talking on voice channels. So we like to give you a sense of those 3 big buckets. You could be focusing on outreach, in which case, let's say you want to look at how many people in the last 7 days did I have the potential to engage with? Or you might be looking at, say, how many people in the last month stopped by and actually contributed. So you're looking at, different numbers here. So this is a nice way of just getting a sense of your entire community through these 3 different buckets of users. The other thing that we like to do is we like to show you growth over time. So back when we were talking about impact, you can see here on this chart, this is one example of a community that was founded in 2019 and experienced kind of what we would consider typical but solid growth. But you can see on these little call outs, and each one of these call outs, again, is one of the top days of growth, that a lot of effort was placed on this section of time here, which was about almost 2 years ago, this time, to drive growth. And you saw the effect immediately, where membership was heavily impacted. Their reach went from the basically we'll call it 70,000 to getting close to their target of almost 100,000. So again, one of the things we like to do is show you the impact of different metrics together. So this is a report you get right out of the box that shows you your entire history, but it really shows you what days you experienced the largest number of joins, which again led to growth. So this is just one example of a type of report that gives you insights as to when and what you were focusing on and how it worked. Other things that we focus on are things like activity itself at a server level. So I have here pulled up what we would call a server activity report. And here's an example of a server with a heat map where you can see it's not quite as active and it's basically ready to be re-engaged. And then here's a similar server that we consider much more active or healthy. So you can actually see, and again, it's a creative server for Fortnite. And as you would expect, most of the activities falling around the weekends, telling the community management team which days actually they're getting the most expressions. And again, we call an expression when people are messaging, emoji reacting, or replying. And then also what times of day are actually the most active. So what this is doing, if you step back to those, what are we using data for? The thing we're really using it for is to either make a decision or to help us understand the decision we've made. So the types of decisions that I look for when I'm looking at this is, what's a good time to post? During a weekend or a week or a Friday, certain times of the day. Some of the really basic questions you can answer with this type of activity analytics. I saw that there was a question. I'll definitely circle back real quick and answer that one. One of the other things that we offer is the ability to export your member list So sometimes you just want to know who your users are. We'll talk about sentiment in a moment, but I just wanted to really show you, this is a concrete example of how one of the things that community teams just want to know is what's a good time to post and what were good times that we posted in the past. We talked about some of those building blocks of channels and roles. There are reports in this service, the solution, that tell you channel by channel levels of engagement, but then we also summarize it in 30-day windows. So here's an example of another community that we support. That's a Fortnite community. And unlike the creative community, it's an LFG community. And you can see their channels reflect that. Of course, their most popular channel here is looking for group. And you can see the number of message posted, the number of members posting, message per member. We also give average sentiment. If you want to go literally look at that, you could click this link and jump right into that channel and just be back in the conversation. But the purpose here is to show teams that are managing communities what channels are active and how many messages per member, which is kind of our ratio for general activity, where we're getting a lot of maybe small groups of people having many messages, in which case that ratio would be high, or many members posting 1 or 2 messages, in which case that ratio would be low. So we try to come up with these really straightforward rules of quick little snapshot rules that tell me what's going on within my individual channels as well as across my whole server. We also give you positive, negative sentiment. Again, it's a tug of war. Typically you want a 3-to-1 ratio, or 4-to-1, which is what this server's providing here. So again, going down below just the waterline of your whole community and looking channel by channel, you're getting access to all sorts of summarized analytics. You can also, again, drill down into those specific messages as well. And we give this snapshot at a 30-day, a 7-day, or if you want to just do an all-time history, you can see here, again, it's pretty solid. Their LFG North America is their main channel. It's why they exist, and it is very active. And the messages per member rate is 9, which is much higher than the 2.3 average. So this tells me this is great. This is functioning just like it should. You'll also get these experiences where we were talking about a server that was kind of lying fallow, where we're not getting any messages. Now, again, this is an example of a server that we've kind of retired. But if you start to see these numbers drop, that's your indicator that something's going on in a specific channel, possibly, or a specific role, which we also do role level reporting. Here's an example where we look at role by role, the number of members assigned, and most importantly, the weekly change, how many members are taking up or exiting that role, and what the monthly change is. So if you're a community team, let's say you're launching a new role and you want to see, are people uptaking that role? For example, when you do onboarding, you can ask them a series of questions, and based on how they respond to those questions, they're assigned specific roles. So you might be able to actually tell upticks in your new onboarding platform or policy based on just tracking role response. You could also just need to know quickly how many people are in specific roles. This dashboard can provide that. One of the other things that we also try to do just in general is let you have access to your data. So when we do these kind of dense tables, we let you download this data as a CSV as well, in case you want to sort of take it and go and do something else with it. So again, this is an example of just those basic building blocks of channels and roles and your onboarding, how you can look and answer some of the questions you might have about what's exciting, what's important, when's a good time to post. There's another thing that we take advantage of with the Discord API, which is as people are using Discord, they may not be in your community contributing. They might not be messaging or emoji reacting, but they probably linked some of their game platforms like Steam, for example, to their Discord account, or say Spotify. Discord will let you know what your members are doing. So it almost kind of gives you a sense of what they're interested in. And we've turned that into what's called a daily activity report. So here's just an example of one of our communities. You can see kind of spikes on different times when they're more active playing games. So this is kind of what you would expect with an LFG group, where they would kind of gaming activity would kind of stack up probably around weekends, as we saw in the heat map. But we can go down and actually see what games they're playing. So again, right now, the report can either be for the month or for the week. And we try to limit it. We say only activities that 10 or more members are participating in the last 30 days. But this is a great way to see what your game community of gamers would be interested in, because you're literally looking at the titles that they're playing. Now, it's no surprise here, this is a Fortnite LFG community, so Fortnite should be near the top of the list. But like we see across the board, Roblox, Valorant, and Minecraft are always kind of popular titles. One interesting thing that just is kind of we see happening in other communities and clients we serve is screen capture software is also tracked. So in this case, people are using Metal in this community to do a lot of screen clipping. So they're playing together, they're having great sessions, and then they're using Metal to do screen clipping. Now, if I was a community mod and I saw this screen clip activity, if I haven't already created a channel for content sharing where people could like show their best hits from a game or something like that, I probably would want to create one to give them a space, because you've got people on your community that are actually using Metal to sort of capture and collect, maybe share gameplay, right? So when I see things like this, it gives me ideas like, oh, this is what my people are into. This is what they're using. We also do what's called monthly details. Not every application gives us this level of detail, but some applications or games will tell you that. So like we said, there's a lot to understand, not only from your channels and roles and onboarding and things like that, but just some of that background data that Discord's collecting for you, we try to make available. Lastly, we do something called sentiment analysis, which is where we take every single message and we push it through kind of a standard LLM to give either a 0 for neutral, +1 for positive, or -1 for negative. And we do this analysis. We kind of limit it to the last 30 days. But for some of our clients, we can go deeper and pull lifetime history. We can do sentiment, all sorts of different ways. But it's a nice, just kind of quick pulse check to see which way the community is trending. In this case, we've got a super positive Minecraft LFG community. Here's one where we've got, no surprise, neutral is kind of one of the largest categories typically, as you can see in some of these other communities. And then we also let you pull the messages themselves. So you can click on the link and go look at that message itself on your server, or you can export those messages that move the needle, the very positive, negative, or very negatives. So again, like we said, we like to give you some data points to let you see if there's specific types of conversations that are happening that you want to drill in on, focus on. It's right here in the dashboard. So like I said, we've covered a lot of ground here. I'm going to switch gears back to our deck and just see what kind of questions anyone in the audience might have had.
I didn't see a question pop through, Chris. I had just put a couple things in the comments,
Okay.
just reiterating something that you had shared.
Okay. So since we have a moment, then let me just show one other report. It's our member activity report. Again, everything I've been showing you is at a server level, but if you did have multiple servers, we roll this data up. So this again is the entire portfolio. Same kind of look at activity, heat maps, but we do something where we take data points and we'll project out future growth or forecasted value based on your current. So that's something that we provide, that if you've got 8 weeks worth of data, trend data, we will project forward 2 weeks worth of data. Lastly, we talked a little bit about onboarding, but there is a measure that the Discord server insights provides that we find to be super valuable. So we carry that over into this report, and it's something called successful activation. So again, this is something that I'd probably would focus heavily on in terms of community moderation and management, where when someone lands in my community, are they going to do what Discord defines as successfully activate, which is they post or react to 3 or more messages within 24 hours. 15% is actually the baseline that Discord sets. So again, this portfolio of different communities that we've been looking at averages at 21%. So they're above average, which means those members that are joining are having successful activations. So this is just a nice little way of looking back once a month and just make sure that I'm on track, and that when I am getting big joins, that I'm also getting them successfully activated. So it's, again, one of those other measures that we try to focus on and let you know, hey, this is something you should just probably check, once a month or whenever you're having a big membership drive, things like that. So like I said, we could do a full demo of this, but we just wanted to give you a taste for how some of the data that's just naturally being captured inside of Discord is readily available to help you with your decision making about how to engage and drive growth in your community. So again, this is sort of the wrap-up screen where we talked about growing the community and measuring your progress. One of the things we find really powerful is to establish routines and habits and create a community voice. And that's where you get some of those trends that measure out. We looked at things like positive to negative message ratio, the number of messages per member. All of those things, you'll see higher values. We see higher values in communities that have worked hard to establish a routine. A really basic example of this is every time you post something, if I'm the original poster, try to throw an emoji in there to get people using emoji as a response, because if someone actually emoji clicks, we know who clicked on it and how many clicks you get and what types of emojis. Just like in a group chat that you're having with your friends, it's nice when someone thumbs up or hearts the message and you know that people are reading it. If you start that habit inside of your conversations in Discord, it creates a higher engagement, and it literally will, right? It creates a higher number of members that have reacted. So your number goes from an average of 1% to 2%, maybe to 3, 4, 5% of your audience is engaging. So you could, just by putting emojis into your responses for posts and having other people follow suit, getting them in the habit, you'll see a higher engagement rate. Creating opportunities to let members express themselves. We know Discord has said that people who, things like if you have lore in a game, having a channel where people can see the art design of, let's say, a boss change over time. So things like developer diaries are a great way to get people interested in tracking, but then opening it up in, say, a forum where people can contribute their own ideas or give you feedback on your game. People love to use Discord to express themselves. So we see higher engagement rates in communities that have created a space for that and encourage it actively. We talked about the example where we saw metal clipping in that Fortnite community. That's one where once they added a channel for that, they saw higher engagement. And then when it comes to all of this, again, it's about just setting goals for the community. You can't boil the ocean. So pick 1 or 2 stats that you really want to work with, whether that be successful activation, you've got a new role that you want to grow adoption of, you put it in your onboarding, you have a new channel that you're actively posting a lot of good content into and you want to see the growth of that. Just set goals for your community beyond just total membership, and it'll really help you focus and measure the progress. I don't know, Andrew, if you had some thoughts on some of these wrap up.
No, I think you nailed it, Chris. Just wanted to say thank you to the IGDA community for having us share this webinar today. I don't see any questions popping through in the chat, but we are going to share a couple of links. Chris, if you could go ahead and drop one into the comments chat, which I think we'll share across platforms. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we are really available and accessible to talk with folks that are interested in smarter Discord analytics. There are two sort of primary ways to get connected with us. One is through this Jot form that Chris is sharing the link to now. If you are managing a Discord community and you're interested in some of these more advanced analytics, filling out that jot form will sort of queue that up for us to get a bot into your hands and to get working with you. You can do this asynchronously. We can communicate via our Discord channel or via email, whatever you prefer. We also jump on calls with users and customers all the time. The second is by booking some time with us directly. I have a Calendly that I often post on LinkedIn. We'll post it on our Blue Sky. And so we'll make sure that the IGDA community's got access to that as well. Again, appreciate everybody's time and engagement today. Please send us some messages and if you've got specific questions for follow-up. And we hope to engage with folks within this community and beyond that are interested in bringing Discord strategy and analytics right to the forefront of how they're engaging their community and audience. So thanks everybody for the time today. Hope you have a great week. And that's all from us for now.